Welcome back to Daring and Doing. I'm Will Hester, and I'm joined by the brilliant Ben Bowman. How you feeling, mate, after that result?
Mate, Ange out? Got to go?
Yeah, I think so.
Get him out?
Yeah, Ange out, I think.
We're shit again, aren't we? I'm all right. I'm more annoyed about the reaction to the result than the result actually in itself.
I'm the same.
It's just so annoying. Like we were really poor, and that was probably our worst performance of the season. But just like the head loss is just unbelievable. Like since international break, just forget about it for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
man. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, we don't have to watch Spurs for 2 whole weeks. Like,
it's great.
It's a gift. Yeah. Like, save your energy. Yeah, honestly, that was ridiculous. We're gonna get into it. I'm a bit frustrated as well because I got this retro Tottenham kit before the Fulham game. I got the mic ordered. I'm a full kit wanker on a 3-0 loss. Do you know what I mean? Like, I came prepared, like buzzing, and it's like bittersweet. I'm just sat here, like sad and depressed.
Still, good news about the kit. Looks nice though. Looks nice.
Well, it is. I know, but
yeah, it's nice.
It's got the Daring and Doing colours. I mean, it's got the Spurs colours. Obviously, we're trying to base it off Spurs colours, but it sort of goes with the mug as well that my mum got me. So I am actually a full kit wanker.
It's quality. Have you got socks and shin pads and socks underneath?
No, that's the next thing to get.
Just hear the tapping of your studs on the floor.
Yeah, I'll get like a sweatband on my wrist. Actually, that's something I've realised massively, that I sweat so like profusely without even knowing. I need to go to the doctor. It can't be a healthy thing, but like the other day I was watching one of the recordings back and I literally put my arms back like that. And honestly, it was so wet up, massive. I was so scared. I was thinking, did Ben notice? Because oh my God, it was like the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I probably should have said that.
To be fair though, like those kits are the worst for sweating in as well, them ones, because they're so thick. Like I still need to get that shirt. That shirt's from the year I was born, and I'm trying to collect all 3 of them.
Yeah,
and the club have like re-released that one and the home kit, and they are 2 of the nicest Spurs kits of all time, which is ironic, seeing as we were absolutely shit, or we were pony during that period, and our sponsor was pony, but the kits were beautiful. Like there's the blue, and they've also done the blue and purple striped one haven't they as well? Have you seen that?
I think so.
With the collar. That's why you'll see so many people now wearing that kit around Spurs because they've re-released it. And there's that, and there's a plain purple one. And I remember, I was like, they're not the sort of shirt that you want to play football in.
Oh, absolutely not.
I just had them to sort of go to Spurs and, just have because they're nice. I remember one night I played 5-a-side and I was wearing one of the old pony shirts. And this is like a real one from like back in the day. I managed to get it. And I'm not joking, it was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. It's so thick and so uncomfortable. It's like, they're beautiful kits, but like, it's just, you do not want to wear that. But the opposite of that is like when you see like the old boys at Spurs, like wearing the new shirt from like this season, it's like they clearly have bought the wrong size because it's like, oh, that used to fit back in the 90s. And they bought like the dry fit Nike shirt and their beer bellies just poking out of the bottom. It's hilarious. It's so funny. They need to make football kits that sort of fit again, I think.
Oh, 100%, like a little bit baggy. 100% they do. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine this, like when you're sweating out, getting so heavy and just being unbearable. Mate. But my dad shows me up, like whenever I play like 5-a-side, my dad can still ball. Like I did not get my footballing ability from my dad. He's like 6'2". I'm 5'8". Yeah, literally, genuinely. Like I'm 5'8", he's 6'2". He's so good. And he's like passing much everything, but he wears like full kit to the Tuesday night football. Like he'll wear like socks rolled up to the knees, like the shorts and stuff. And I'm just there in that black t-shirt. And I'm a bit jealous of him. Like he owns it.
5-a-side is amazing. The characters that it's just like how seriously people take it, but also just like what people turn up wearing and all that kind of stuff. It's so funny.
Yeah. It's people's like release from the week. Like all their tension and anger just gets out on this like 5-a-side little football pitch.
Oh mate, we've had like fights at 5-a-side. We've had like fucking people like breaking bones. It's just like
it's lethal.
Our 5-a-side like we used to do. I don't play anymore because of work, but it used to be like the perfect balance of just like there was a few shit people. Like I'd include myself in that as well. Like I've got a beautiful, like I'm a bit like Berbatov on a 5-a-side pitch. Like, I don't run too much, but like when I'm just unreal.
Sticks to your foot.
If I could get, Yeah, if I could get fitter, I think I'd be a decent 5-a-side player. Like, there's no way I play 11-a-side, but like I used to love it. But like how seriously people take it, and it's just got to that point now. It's just like I'm quite glad I don't play. Like, because we used to do it with my mates, and it was just like, but yeah. Did you on kits? Did you see the New England kits?
Oh mate, it's so good, isn't it? That away. Actually, I was thinking of that away kits. I need to get it, but actually, the home kit's just as good. Like on second glance, it's unbelievable.
It's really
And
nice.
I saw you tweeting that it's the best ones in like years, and I agree. Like it's so.
The ones for the World Cup were so crap. Like the last couple of years ago, like the red one and where it had like the blue like on the panels on the shoulders.
Yeah.
That was rubbish. But hopefully that bodes well for Nike next year for us. I've seen a few of our leaks and they do look quite decent.
Well, people were talking about like an all-black kit. I don't know whether that's just like a fans doing it like for themselves because everyone loves all-black kit. But yeah, I've seen people doing it. Obviously, we're linked with the Jordan sponsorship as well for like a fourth kit, which would be ridiculous. Think of the revenue sales, or not revenue sales, but like think of the sales Spurs would get from like people buying that shirt because it's ridiculous. Like people buy PSG shirts just because it has Jordan on it.
Oh, the marketing that comes with it. PSG. Yeah, the marketing that comes with it is insane. But all black kit would look good for Postecoglou's funeral after we've lost to Fulham. All black. It was perfect.
Yeah. We've delayed talking about it as long as we can, but I feel like we have to get into it.
We just keep talking about kits. Do we have to? Okay.
We're talking about our 5-a-side. Anything but Spurs' defeat to Fulham because we going into it. We were so confident, both of us. I was like, a doggy's going to score Kulusevski after that. He's going to shout, "I'm him" to the fans. And we both called like 2-0, a 2-0 win.
Yeah.
We've rocked up to Craven Cottage. Basically, what they've done is bent us over.
Yeah.
And smashed us, basically.
Basically what we did to Villa,
Exactly.
Basically what we did to them,
Exactly. It was our worst performance of the season. How are you feeling after that game, and where did it go wrong?
I was pretty annoyed afterwards on Saturday night because it didn't feel like it after everything we'd spoke about last week and like the quotes from Kulusevski and like we're going to play the way that we want to play despite, if we're going to lose on our terms, and we just didn't see that at all. Like even against Brighton when we went 4-0 down, like we saw a bit of that. Do you know what I mean? And, we nearly got back in the game against Fulham. It was another one where that Werner chance goes in, then who knows what could have happened. I don't know how we missed that, but we weren't good enough from the outset. Like it was from minute one, we were just so poor. Like you can blame Ange, you can look at his substitutions and the fact that he didn't make them quick enough. And I don't think he did. I think he probably should have changed something at half time because the issues that we faced in the first 20 minutes of the second half when the game got away from us was hurting us all game. We were lucky to only be 1-0 down at half time, really, despite having some pretty good chances ourselves as well. And like on another day, maybe those go in and it's a different game and you walk away saying we didn't deserve it, but we got something from it. But I think it probably was the worst performance of the season. Like Wolves at home a few weeks ago was bad, but I think this, maybe just because it was 3-0, just felt that little bit worse. And I think off the back of it's so Tottenham, off the back of like our best performance of the season to then do this. And no disrespect to Fulham either, because they are a really good side. They thoroughly deserved that. It wasn't just a case of we played poorly, and it's important to say that. And it's also important to say that Arsenal have lost there, and like we sort of talked about in the preview, that Liverpool have gone there, found it tough. They're not an easy side to play against by any means. But with all that said, that even if we lose the game, you need to see more from the team, and we just didn't see that. And I thought that was probably the most. I think maybe Wolves, we were frustrated by the low block and just couldn't break them down, and we weren't great. But this was probably the least Ange-like performance that I think we've seen. Just almost like we strolled up and thought we were going to win, almost believed our own hype a little bit, which is a bit of a shame, really.
Yeah, I think even Sonny said that after the game. He was saying that like you can't, just because we got a really good 3 points against Aston Villa, you can't rock up to a game like this and think you're going to get the guaranteed 3 points. Do you know what I mean? Fulham, it looked like Fulham were just going to roll over for us. But they were way more intense. But the frustrating thing about the whole performance was we undid everything we did like against Villa. We got 4-0, a 4-0 win against Villa, lost 3-0. So there's only one goal difference from that massive win against Villa. Villa helped us out by drawing over the weekend, big time. But it was just I don't know. It was arrogant. It was lackadaisical.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
That is a word.
Yes.
Come on.
And we were naive, so naive. We strolled up thinking we were it, and got absolutely turned over. It was our worst performance of the season by a country mile.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we expected. Fulham were always gonna turn up and play. They're at home. They've had, like you said, they got a good record against the top 6 clubs this season at home. They were always going to turn up. They were always going to give us a game, and they completely outplayed us. And they've actually exploited our weaknesses, not playing in a low block, because they didn't really sit back. They attacked us. They've really capitalised on all our vulnerabilities. And it was a shit show. Like, honestly, it was so bad. It's just so frustrating after such a good result. And you're trying to get rid of that Spursy title that everyone keeps labeling us with. And we don't do ourselves any favours, because, I mean, going from 4-0 to Villa away to going to Fulham and losing 3-0. It's just ridiculous. I was sat there in silence. I was shocked. Like, I was literally, I weren't getting angry. I was just there like, is this actually going? Is this actually real? Like, ridiculous.
Yeah, me too.
But how did Fulham exploit our weaknesses? Because, like I said, they didn't sit back in a low block, and they were constantly a threat on the attack in transition and and when they were in possession on the ball. How did they do it?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think Anthony Robinson was probably their man of the match.
God, just up and
down that side, down that flank. I think that's someone that Spurs should probably be definitely looking at in the summer for a replacement for Udogie. I didn't think our fullbacks had a particularly good game, or either of them. I thought Pedro Porro was slightly worse, and I think that's why Robinson was allowed so much joy down that side. I think countless times as well, I thought Romero had a pretty faultless game, to be honest, but down the other side, there were so many times where, and you saw it a lot with Man United against Liverpool yesterday, where Liverpool were just able to run off the centre-back and full-back into the box and create those kind of overloads in the channels and cut it back for a strike. And we saw that a lot with Fulham against us. And I think that's maybe partly to do with Romero and Dragusin not playing too much football together as well. They didn't quite look solid as a partnership, although I thought Romero individually had a really good game. And I think that's crazy to say after a 3-0 defeat, but I don't really think he put a foot wrong, to be honest. I think they were just much sharper in the transition than us. I think we dawdled on the ball quite a lot when we had it. I thought Maddison had a really poor game. There was a chance that came from Maddison, again, something that we spoke about last week, about choosing to play the kind of aesthetic pass, using the outside of his foot, and it played us into trouble, and they turned us over and nearly scored. We just gave the ball away so sloppily in midfield. And Fulham were great, but I think we kind of were the architects of our own downfall in that sense, that we just gave up possession a lot of the time far too easily. Whether it was Basuma, whether it was Sarr, who again had an amazing game last week, gave it away too sloppily. And then you look at the second goal, the fact that they're able to run. I mean, I've been critical of Man United's midfield this season in the sense that I think I've said multiple times you can drive a bus through it, and we saw that yesterday in the FA Cup. But you look at that second Fulham goal, Maddison and Sarr and Basuma aren't even in the picture, and Fulham are basically 6v4 against us. And it's like, how has that been allowed to happen? It just felt like almost a bit of a lack of discipline from us that came from that lack of intensity and maybe not taking the game too seriously from the start, almost strolling up with that attitude that we thought we were going to win the game. And I don't question the tactics. I don't question the way that we tried to play, because there were neat moments in the first half as well where you thought, as the first half went on and just before they scored, we sort of grew into the game and sort of clicked into gear a little bit. And I think that's what made what happened after disappointing, because there was a period where we started to get on top. Maddison had that chance. Sonny had that chance over the bar. Maybe just the decision-making in the final third wasn't quite there, but we were growing into the game and doing what we wanted to do. Udogie, aggressive, high on that side, winning the ball back, turning them over. But we just weren't able to capitalise. And I just think it was a lack of discipline, really, on our side that kind of that played into Fulham's hands. But full credit to them. I think one of the changes that he maybe should have made, and I'm not a massive advocate for him, but I think I know it's easy to say when you're 3-0 down, but I thought Højbjerg allowed us a lot more control in that midfield. That discipline that he does have. We know that he's your kind of meat and potatoes midfielder. He's not going to offer you a hell of a lot, but I actually think he brought that structure that we didn't really have before. But again, when you're 3-0 down, and Fulham then clearly sat off when it was 3-0, and that allowed us into the game, and we were playing some good football, creating chances after that, but they kind of allowed us to do that. But even then, when they played into our hands, we weren't clinical enough to take the chances. It was just an all-round off display. And I do put it down as a bit of a blip. And I'm not necessarily worried for the rest of the season, but it was just, I just think the lack of discipline, I think, is how Fulham were allowed to exploit our weaknesses, but they were very good.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree with literally everything you just said. I think the fact that he took off Basuma, Sarr, Maddison all at the same time just spoke volumes because we were just getting outplayed in that midfield. Fulham was so more intense than us. They gave us they were punching, they were shooting heavy shots at us from early on, and we weren't switching on to them. And we were very, very passive in our defense. Our defense, we were allowing it to happen as if we were going to deal with it every time. But they were having some serious chances. They were getting in behind a few times and just giving us warnings, and we just never woke up to it. But they were overloading the flanks. They were outnumbering Basuma in the middle of the park because obviously Basuma's that single pivot. They were just outnumbering him every single time, and the goals were how we expected Fulham were going to try and attack us. So obviously, on the flanks, the first goal, Porro didn't get close enough to Anthony Robinson. Robinson just sets a low cross over to Muniz. And I mean, we'll get into Dragusin because I thought he had an up and down game. But again, we just switched off at the back. Their one player who was a threat in that attacking area, let him have a free shot on goal. Just didn't concentrate. Then we're 1-0 down, and then the second goal, it was a Castagna cross, wasn't it? So it was just an simple overlap. Lost the midfield battle. Overlap on the right hand side. Cut back, and the goal Lukic scored. He didn't even blindside Basuma. He made an underlapping run into the box. Yeah. Basuma was seeing him the whole way, but he just didn't make that effort to get across and anticipate it. And then we're 2-0 down, and we just made it so hard for ourselves. Heads dropped, we're getting frustrated. And then the third goal was just a mess. A mess at the back, another set piece. We just didn't deal with it. We weren't strong enough. We didn't want to be first to it. And Muniz anticipates that chance and scores, makes it 3-0, and then we're out of the game. And then we try and change it up. Then we try and push on. And it's too late. We're frustrated and we've lost the game. And I don't know. It was just so frustrating because we were getting those warnings and we didn't wake up. And we didn't do anything to change that. I don't know whether that's Ange. I don't know whether that's the players. But it might have just been one of those games where we just weren't ready for how intense Fulham were going to be. I think we just were naive.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things with Ange, like with the system that he tries to set up and play with us. You have to be at 100% because otherwise, the way we play leaves holes, it leaves gaps. But so does the way that Man City plays. So does the way that Liverpool plays. So does the way that Arsenal plays. It's just about exploiting them. If you want to be an attacking team on the front foot, you're always going to leave yourselves vulnerable. And these results can happen. But I think what you picked up on with Basuma for the second goal was really important because we had warnings in the first half. There was one of the chances right at the start of the game where he's just so slow to track that runner into the box from midfield. I think it was Lukic again in the first half who had a shot just wide, I think, from one of the early chances they had. I can't remember who it was receiving the cutback and fired it just wide. It was deflected wide, I think, from Romero maybe. But he just doesn't pick up the runner and doesn't anticipate him. The warning signs were there. I think that's what my real issue with Basuma. And I know we've got questions about Basuma, so we'll save it a bit more for later. But I think it's so frustrating because I think we were really seeing someone getting back to somewhat near their best, from what I saw, almost playing a little bit of a different role in this Spurs team. But he's just gone massively off the wagon on Saturday. And I think if he's not playing well, then the whole midfield falls apart. And I think that leads to a bigger question around the summer. And do you buy a six that is more disciplined in that area? Because I think his lack of discipline at times can really cost us. When he's on it, he's amazing. But when he's not, he can look very, very average.
Exactly. We might as well talk about it now because you've brought up a really good point. And what is your thought process on Basuma at the moment? Because he had such a poor game. He was terrible. Mainly just in that defensive transition. And I think that's a weakness in his game, his recovery tackles. He's obviously really good in those 50-50 duels. You saw it against Aston Villa, how he'd press and he'd win those tackles. But it's when he's running back towards his own goal. I think that's the weakness that he has, and teams are noticing that. And he is. My question is: do you think he's vulnerable in that single pivot? Do we need to change it, or do we need to just, like you said, improve on a Basuma in the summer?
Yeah, I think so because I love Basuma as a player. Like his box office at times aesthetically is fantastic to watch. Like when you look at some of the games at the start of the season against Arsenal, under pressure and his ability to. He's almost a better defender on the ball because of the way he is able to relieve pressure on you, on the back four and on your team on the midfield, and get you playing up the pitch. Like, he can be so press resistant at times. He's so strong to brush players aside. But I think it's his defensive discipline that can really let Tottenham down at times. I think we saw that in the Wolves game on the transition. He was nowhere to be seen a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Spurs, to go to that next level, I do think when you look at the teams above you and you look at City and you look at Arsenal with Rodri and Rice, and I'm not saying that Spurs are shopping in that pond by any stretch of the imagination, but in terms of the profile of six that they've got, someone who's able to eat up the ground, they're long legs, they're big players, so tactically disciplined. And, we were talking about Rice before we started, and, he's been kind of given a new role at Arsenal. He's been allowed a little bit more license forward, but he is always there to mop up and dictate the tempo of the game. And I think Basuma has the potential to do a lot of that, but I just think it's about the discipline side of the game for me. I think he goes wandering too much. I think he leaves too much space, and I just don't think there's far too many times where he doesn't bust a gut to be in the right position. And I think you do see that with Sarr. I think Sarr is good at tracking back, but he's not a defensive midfielder. Sarr is much better deployed further up the pitch where he can be your box to box. And that, for me, like, Sarr isn't the answer to playing there. I don't think Sarr could play a six at all, personally. I think then you turn to Bentancur, and I think for a lot of the things that Bentancur is good at, Basuma is good at, Bentancur is also good at. But I think with Bentancur, that lack of match sharpness is really prevalent at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And do you chuck him into these games where there is so much pressure on him? You saw how good Bentancur can be when there's not as much pressure on the ball on Saturday. When Fulham dropped back, he came on. He ran that game for the last 20 minutes alongside Højbjerg.
Yeah, I thought he was class.
He was class. And like, he's such a brilliant player. But I do worry about Spurs' lack of depth in that area, because I think going into the summer, if you want to kick on as a team, that sixth position is so important to really challenge. You saw Liverpool I know there was kind of there's questions over Endo at the start of the season, but what an amazing signing that has turned out to be. I know he's not the same mould or same profile as Rodri or Rice, but it shows there are different options out there. I think it's just such a shame with Basuma, because I think the potential is all there, but I just think sometimes in terms of his discipline, he really lets himself down and really lets the team down in big moments, and it cost us big time on Saturday. I thought he was one of our worst players on the pitch.
Yeah, I completely agree, and he's such a confidence player, Basuma. But he is very emotionally charged at the same time. So like he's very susceptible to dropping his head and then losing that confidence and then having a poor run of games. When he is confident, there's no one better than him when in being press resistant, getting the ball from the back four and just popping it around the corner of players, popping it around players, and then we move, and then we've broken the press and we're away. You saw it so. We saw it so much in the first start at the first end of the season. Basuma, he's one of the best Premier League players on the ball, I think, in midfield. It is just his defensive abilities that let him down. It's him in defensive transactions. Transitions. It just lets him down. And I do think we need a more destroyer type in that number 6, or just support Basuma a bit more with the way we play, maybe, because it is a vulnerability. Maybe just have a fullback sit back, maybe a Doggy or Porro, just sit back a little bit and help him out in transitions, because he does need help at the moment. Maybe until we get that destroyer, because it's going to be a vulnerability that's going to be exposed again and again until the end of the season. And you do that against Arsenal, Liverpool, City, they'll smash us, just like Fulham did. So I don't know. I don't know whether, whilst we have him here as that 6, we need to support him a bit more. But then we lose something in attack in the way that we play the system. Doggy not getting into the box, Sarr not penetrating the box. So I don't know. I do think we need to upgrade on him. The problem is there's not many players out there in the market that is that destroyer 6. And when there is, they're going to cost a fortune. We've spoken about it like on one of our first episodes. 6s are so integral to most teams. Therefore, they're as expensive as strikers. And you look at how when you're in the market for the best number 6 that's available, you're looking at the same price as the best striker that's available, which is fucking ridiculous amounts of money. I don't know who they're. I mean, but then you made a good point there about Endo. Endo was a bargain signing. No one really even knew him. He come into Liverpool and he's been unreal, and he's gone under the radar. And Liverpool are in this title race, so maybe there are gems out there, and I'm sure our scouting department knows who they are. But I don't know that you're thinking of who you could. We need that sort of Declan Rice, Rodri, like you said, Tchouaméni type holding midfielder that will just break up play and disrupt every attack the opposition has. Basuma isn't that type of player. But the other thing is, the players that are on the market that are destroyer types, you're going to lose that ability to beat a man, beat the press, and the ability on the ball that Basuma brings to the team. So it is a big dilemma. And there's been so many questions, we're going to get into it, about how you would improve the team going forward. But I mean, what sixes come to mind that would be both that destroyer type and do the same thing that Basuma does in beating a press, beating a man?
It's really tricky because, like you said, if you do take Basuma out that and kind of look to a different kind of profile, then how much does that upset the balance of the midfield itself in terms of what you're trying to achieve in the way you play? But then, the greatest tacticians evolve, and Ange has evolved when he's been at previous clubs. He's gone to back threes, he's done all these different things, and I think that's something that people don't actually realise. There's this narrative from outside of Spurs that Ange will just constantly play the way that we're playing right now until the day he dies, and that's not true. That's not true at all. So I think he would be open to that kind of adaptation in the summer. And like I said, I think if we do sign a different kind of profile of six, then we would have to change the way that we play to an extent. I think the one that comes to mind in terms of that ball playing number six that can also break up play is Zubimendi at Real Sociedad. There's been a lot. There's been a lot of talk about him for other clubs in the summer. Obviously, playing in the Champions League for them. Obviously, a big spotlight has been shined on him, but he's been operating as one of the best sixes in Europe. But he is more of a passer. And I think with Basuma, the kind of role that I was noticing him play, especially against Aston Villa, was much more of a deep line playmaker because they weren't pressing onto us. He was allowed a lot more time on the ball. He was switching play. He had more touches than anyone on the pitch. He was really dictating the game from a deeper position. And like you said, getting up the pitch and pressing high. So I think in those sorts of games, someone like a Zubimendi would help a lot in terms of what he's able to do from deeper positions and pass and dictate the game and so on and dictate the tempo of it. Someone like Amadou Onana comes to mind at Everton as well, especially if they're in the financial situation that they're in. If they get relegated, it's the sort of thing that Spurs have done with the likes of Richarlison and Brennan Johnson, kind of picking up these deals from clubs that really need the money. And Onana, I think, would be a fairly smart purchase. And I think he does a lot of the other side of that. He breaks up play really well. He's a monster. He's a physical, he's a specimen in terms of the way that he's able to get about the pitch. He's strong. He'll brush you off of it. But then again, I think I've noticed sometimes with Onana that tactically he doesn't quite have that discipline either. I remember in the game against us that we beat him earlier on in the season at White Hart Lane where he started. I think he actually came off at half-time, maybe with an injury. Maybe that's wrong, maybe that's right, who knows. But in that game, we were 2-0 up inside the first sort of 25 minutes, half an hour. And I liked what I saw for some parts, but he also lacked that same tactical discipline that I think Basuma lacks at times. I think Bentancur is the complete opposite of that in the sense that I think from what you've seen him do for Uruguay, from what you've seen him do for Tottenham, he is that tactical sponge. He is that player that's going to want to do everything that the manager asks of him. And I don't think you can fault anything that Bentancur has done since he's come back, where he hasn't quite looked at the same level after a really good first few games. It's not down to his ability. It's not down to how he interprets the system. It's not down to anything like that. And it's certainly not down to effort. It's just about sharpness. And I do think Bentancur has all the attributes to play that role. But I do think you can't rely on Bentancur for the whole season to be that six. He's amazing at breaking up play. I think a lot of people from outside of Spurs don't really know what Bentancur actually is. Yeah. But we've seen it. Spurs fans have seen it. Like, he is so underrated when he is on his game. And I do think he could be one of the answers, but I do think you need to supplement that with another option as well. So I think it would just be someone, like you said. And like you said, they're becoming as rare as strikers because, you've seen the way that City and Arsenal especially have gone to across the whole pitch, really, signing these big physical players that can play in multiple positions. And Declan Rice is exactly that. You look at that with Rodri, how he's been able to convert Stones into an inverted fullback that can also play in midfield, all those kind of things. Like, they are rare, and it does take a special coach to bring that out of them. But I think we've got the coach that could transform someone like a Zubimendi, someone like an Onana into the sort of player that we want. But I don't think they're perfect solutions, but there's not much else on the market, really.
No. There's this player for Feyenoord, is it Vifer? And from what I've seen of Brazil Scout YouTube 10-minute clips, he's fucking the next Yeah. But then that's the thing. Then you don't see his like the mistakes he makes. You don't see his vulnerabilities. They don't show that, obviously. So it's so hard, like being a Spurs fan and thinking, who can we sign? And then obviously the scouting department have a big list. But like you're always thinking, who would suit that system? And no one really springs to mind. That's the thing. Like you said, Zubimendi. He's good at dictating the players, and he's good at.
He's much more of a passer as a kind of a six than he is.
But maybe we could use a passer to break through the press. Maybe not a dribble to break through the press. Maybe just a quick pass. Maybe you can be smarter. I don't think Bissouma's the most intelligent player. I think a lot of things he does is instinctive. And like you say, he lacks discipline in a tactical sense. Even Conte said about Bissouma in a tactical sense, he's not ready. And you do see it in his anticipation and his alertness. It's not quite what you need someone to break up play and to anticipate chances, defenders running in, penetrating the box. So, I mean, attackers running in, penetrating the box. I don't know. If we sign a player, they're going to lack what Bissouma has in possession, because he's one of the best at that, having the ball, beating the man. But you do just want a different dynamic, a different player with a different dynamic, different attributes that can play in the games where we're going to be pounced on a lot and can just destroy any counter-attack that's against us. And I feel like Bissouma, the way to go is have Bissouma as a squad player, have Bissouma for games where the other team aren't as much of a threat on the counter. And then when we are playing it in a game like that, where it's quite end-to-end, then just have someone that's just going to, who is a specialist at breaking up attacks.
Yeah, I think another name that kind of springs to mind as well is Ederson from Atalanta, who Spurs have been linked with quite a lot. The Brazilian midfielder's having a really good season. It was come out today again that Spurs are in the front row apparently to sign him. We're looking at players that can not only improve the squad but also push the ceiling of the team ahead of Postecoglou's second season. That's coming from reports in Italy. So that'll be interesting. I think that's one to keep an eye on as well. So I think that obviously we might end up talking about centre-backs at some point later on, and Anne just made it clear that we're going to sign we're definitely looking to sign another centre-back in the summer. And I do think we'll probably look to sign another midfielder as well. It's just whether it's going to be that 8 in Conor Gallagher or whether it's going to be sort of a deeper player who can play in that 6, like an Ederson, like a like a Zubimendi, like an Onana. Or another name that's been mentioned is it Heung-Min at Sporting Lisbon, the Danish midfielder, I believe. He was the one that's got the Arsenal tattoo. Fuck him up. He might be the best player in the world, but unless there's a laser removal in the contract, then we don't want him.
Yeah, he'll have to do like a very more extreme version of what Doherty had to do when he signed.
Yeah, could you imagine
just a video of him just cutting his arm off?
Yeah. Now he's fully coiled.
Yeah. Or just get laser tattoo and then just get the Spurs, the cockerel badge over it.
Yeah.
And then just him doing that. Like whatever Doherty did, what was it? That face of like that. We need that if he signs. But it's difficult. Maybe obviously we've seen with Stones. Obviously he still has Rodri and he struggles without Rodri. But maybe there's a young centre back out there we can mould into a sort of destroyer, someone who's athletic, can cover ground quick, and that can beat a man. Has got a good passing range. I don't know, like a Lenny Euro springs to mind or something like that. But again, you're dreaming. Do you know what I mean? It's so unrealistic. Why would you do that unless you have that player already in your team and you see the potential? I don't know. I have no idea who's out there that's realistic, but something needs to change because we're so vulnerable in transitions.
Agreed.
Going back to the game then, where do we go from here? Because obviously we've got 2 weeks to dwell on that shit result. It's going to be a depressing international break. No one actually likes an international break. We got Southgate ball for the next 2 weeks. Where do we go from this when we do return?
I think we've just got to put it away, dust yourselves off and go again. You can't let it get to you. And I think that the thing that makes me nervous a little bit about the Luton game is the fact that the run that we did go on, we did lose. It was about that losing on our own terms. It wasn't necessarily to do with the performances, whereas this was a poor performance that kind of went against everything that we'd sort of been talking about over the last week in terms of what we saw at Villa and the quotes that we'd heard from Kulusevski, as I mentioned earlier, about losing on our terms. So it'll take a while, I think, for the players to pick themselves up from this. Obviously, Sonny came out and talked about taking responsibility and said it wasn't just the team. It was me, and I thought Sonny actually had a really poor game on Saturday.
Yeah,
and I
he
think
did.
there's been a lot to have been said about the wide players in Kulusevski and Johnson, who a lot of the anger was aimed at them. And personally, although I didn't think they were amazing, I don't quite go along with that. I didn't think Kulusevski was that bad. I didn't think Johnson was too bad. Again, they both had moments where it just didn't quite come off for them. Kulusevski maybe making the wrong decision. It wasn't their best game by any stretch. And you could say they're poor without saying that, Johnson was a waste of money or going against everything we've seen in the last couple of weeks, etc. And obviously we've talked a lot about Kulusevski, but I actually don't think Sonny did anywhere near enough from a focal point of view to bring them into the game. I didn't think his hold-up play was particularly good. Everything bounced off him. His touch was like a trampoline. And I think you said it, I think at half-time, or you text me, and it was like, this feels like it's a game for Richarlison. And it did feel like that. And obviously Richarlison came on, but by that point, it was too late in the game. And I actually think we looked a lot better with Richarlison up front through the middle in that game. But again, it's kind of down to the game state. They sat back in a low block. They allowed us to come onto them, and we did look a lot more threatening. But yeah, that can happen when you're 3-0 down. It's easier to come back into those sorts of games when you're in that position almost. So, and we saw that. But I was really let down by Sonny's performance. But he took the responsibility after the game. He said, I was really poor, we were poor, we've got to move on and dust ourselves down. And I think that's all you can do. And Luton now charged by the fact that Forest have been given that points deduction. They've got an extra incentive going into that game. They've got a really tough run, Luton. They've got Tottenham, Arsenal in the space of 2 games. Then after that, it gets really tough as well. So they need these points. So they're not going to make it easy for us at all. They made it hard enough when we played against them away, although before the sending off, we should have been out of sight in that game anyway. And obviously Luton haven't exactly been the best at holding on to game situations, which should give us confidence if we were to go behind. But yeah, could you imagine what it's like if we go 1-0 down in that game at home to Luton, and then the nerves start settling in, and it's just like, after what we saw on Saturday, the feel-good factor isn't really there off the back of that. So I'm nervous and kind of a bit.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I don't think it's like I'm not sort of staring into the mirror going, everything's going to be all right. Like, where do we go from here now? But like, I just feel like there's going to be this edge at the stadium against Luton. I do think there's going to be this expectation that we have to win this game, and we do. That's right. But my fear is that just rubs off onto the players, and we sort of see a performance that we feared going into it. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, because I was going to ask what you expecting from the next 4 games, because obviously it's Luton at home, West Ham away, Forest at home, and then Newcastle away. So those 2 away games I think I'm more worried about, because obviously West Ham away, they're going to be so up for it, and I can just see them scoring a couple of set pieces. Like, they're such a big team, set piece merchants. So that's going to be quite stressful in that sense. Newcastle away have got PTSD. I think we all have got PTSD from last season. I don't know. Obviously, they're quite vulnerable, Newcastle, but you never know with Newcastle. They'll just turn up for these random matches, and St James's Park get right behind them, and they're just flying. So, and I can guarantee they'll want to get us back from beating them, smashing them 4-1. So, I mean, it's going to be difficult. I don't know, to be honest. I'm torn between let's just keep going, or maybe we need to change something. I saw a picture of a still of the Aston Villa game, where we had 7 players in the half spaces between that Villa back 4, all pushing that back 4 backwards. It worked, yeah, but Bissouma's vulnerability, it was literally just Bissouma in that midfield, and then Van der Ven and Romero behind, and that worries me after seeing that Fulham result and seeing how Bissouma plays in that transition. I feel like we might need to be a bit smarter for these next games. Maybe try. To be fair, I trust Ange. I trust Ange to change it. I'm not going to start saying he needs to play the fullbacks, tuck in a little bit more and support Bissouma, because Ange is working on it. Ange will know the vulnerabilities more than anyone.
Yeah, 100%.
So I am expecting us to bounce back 100%. I think we have got that character we've showed in recent months and recent weeks as well. Like, we have the character to bounce back. We have a stronger mentality than we have done in the last 5 years. And I think this was a blip. I think we can go to Luton. We can beat Luton. We can beat Luton at home easy. And West Ham away, we can beat West Ham. Forest, Newcastle, we can win these games. We can. It's just we need to take this as a wake up call, this result, and just know that you can't go expecting to win any game in the Premier League, and you need to show up. And just how we were against Villa, we were so good against Villa, and then it was the antithesis of that Villa game. The way we rocked up to Fulham, just arrogant. So we need to just switch on and go from there. One thing that really, really pissed me off was how annoying our fan base was after the game. I'm not talking about like the whole fan base. It's just like there was a large section of them on Twitter just pissing me off. I was biting my tongue constantly because I just think they might even be looking for attention. We were saying it before we even come on air that we're slowly turning into Arsenal, our fan base. The way we're just the reactionary mindset and the emotionally charged reactions from losses. It's getting cringe now, I think. Are they overreacting, or have they got a point to be this angry?
I think it's tricky because I don't think there was an overreaction on the basis of the performance because we were really poor, but I think there was a massive overreaction in the sense that people started to question Postecoglou and where we're going and all this sort of stuff, and then start throwing their opinions in about our ambition, that we shouldn't have signed this player and shouldn't sign this player, and we let Harry Kane go, all this sort of stuff. It's just a nonsense. We've scored more goals at this point in a Premier League season than we ever have after match week 28. Or certainly at least the last 10 years is what I saw earlier. People starting to question the Brennan Johnson signings after some really good performances and then one poor performance, and it's like, oh, he's back and all this sort of stuff. Question the fact that people are saying he's back. Just grow up. Like our fans just really like our fan base is not good at compartmentalizing and dealing with bad results. Like we're just not. Some sections of our fan base aren't wired in that way. When in reality, like we've all been used to disappointment at Spurs. Yes, it's frustrating that this is a bump in the road in terms of where we're going, but you have to move on. Like Arsenal lost here. Like other teams have come and lost to Fulham. Like they're a good team. There's no mugs. There's no easy games in the Premier League. And yes, that's easy to forget when you've just been on the back of a defeat, and especially a heavy one like we have. But if you can't see where we're going or what we're trying to do, and know that, like, with inconsistencies, or with this young squad, there's going to be inconsistencies. We won 8 out of our first 10 games at the start of the season. If Spurs had kept that up, we would have been setting points records. We would have been going on invincible. We would have been doing all these things. That was never, ever going to be. That was never ever going to be maintainable throughout the course of the season. So just a little bit of perspective is needed after these kind of results. And I know 100%. That fans get fed up of being told to trust the process or whatever, but that's exactly what you have to do. Like Pep Guardiola came in his first Premier League season and struggled with that City team. Arteta, it's taken him to this point to get them as title challengers, or up to last season. Look at Ten Hag last season and look at Ten Hag this season. It's not easy. Klopp, the first couple of seasons, it took them a couple of years to get back in the Champions League, all those things. And Postecoglou inherited, it came in an unfortunate position where the fan base was probably the most fractured it's ever been. Has done so well to kind of heal that and get us all singing from the same hymn sheet. But it's results like that clearly show that we aren't. And it's just that I think people want to moan for moaning's sake as well. Like I said, bringing the signings into it and saying that signing Timo Werner to replace Harry Kane is showing a lack of ambition, when that's just completely false. And the same with Brennan Johnson. Again, like Brennan Johnson has struggled in his first season at points, but for the most part has been a very valuable member of the squad and got 10 goals and assists in the Premier League. Yes, a poor performance on Saturday, but it wasn't the only one. The fullbacks are really poor. Like I love Destiny Udogie, but he was at fault for the second goal. Like he stepped up, got done far too easily. Pedro Porro had an absolute nightmare of a game. I thought he was terrible in possession and really lacked discipline going back the other way. But it's just these other signings that people want to call out for some reason. And this isn't me saying that we should call out other people. I'm not saying we should call out anyone. I think we should just grow up, accept that we've been beat, and move on. It's just,
exactly.
Football is a very, it's a very kind of, the worst thing about this is that there's the international break. So people will sit and stew on this result for a couple of weeks. And the fact that not everybody's that up for watching England at the moment, like they're friendly games, no one's really that arse, like blah, blah, blah. Like it's just, it's kind of, it's a shit period just to stew on this, but you've just got to get over it. You've got to get over it and not start questioning where we're going. Like this is the first season he's had 1.5 transfer windows, Postecoglou, a summer and a January, to try and, try and rebuild this squad. And all the signings so far that he's made have contributed to that rebuild. Obviously, Dragusin struggled on Saturday, had a decent debut or a proper first set of meaningful minutes against Villa, but struggled in his first start. But he's a young kid, like that will come with time. We miss Van der Ven, obviously. Van der Ven allows us to play the way we want to play. Our system is vulnerable at times when we don't have the best players playing at the ability they want to be. But that's the same of every team. If you zoom out, if you take the best players out of those teams, or you take the best players not performing at their level out of those teams, they struggle as well. Results like this are bound to happen. It's a young squad in its infancy under a manager who's managing for the first time in the Premier League, who has exceeded all expectations. I guarantee that if you went back to some tweets from around this time last year, or like May last year when Postecoglou was first talked about or brought in, and what are our expectations for this season, no one would be saying we'd be in a Champions League race. No one would be saying that we'd be in a Champions League. People just wanted to see progress. And I think what's frustrating is that, yes, you can be annoyed and angry after a result. I was fucked off after Saturday because we'd just seen a performance that wasn't anywhere near the level that we've come to expect. But the fact that we've come to expect so much higher than that this season just shows how far Postecoglou has come and how far we've come since last season. So I don't think it was an overreaction in terms of the performance, but an overreaction in terms of the bigger picture. It's just pathetic, like just honestly pathetic.
Yeah, I think so. It got a bit ridiculous because obviously it is that first season, and can't people see that we're on such an incline? We're on such a positive trajectory as a club. Obviously, bar what's happened in the last couple of weeks with ticket prices and stuff, but on the football pitch and in the structure of our recruitment, we're on such a positive trajectory. And the last thing we need is toxicity. And the last thing we need is a divide within the fan base whilst we're going somewhere, because you've seen how quick this process has already started. We need to get behind this team because it's such a young squad. The last thing we need, because what help does it do, is giving them stick, giving them abuse. And what is so dangerous is the agendas that you're constantly, consistently seeing. Brennan there's agendas against Brennan Johnson. There's agendas against Kulusevski. There's agendas against Basuma. Obviously, you've seen how it's affected Basuma, I think, because I know I got a feeling Basuma's probably seen it or heard that frustration.
Johnson definitely has, because he referenced it in his post-match interview after Villa, where he basically, after a brilliant performance, felt like he had to justify himself and basically say thank you to the fans that have stuck by him. It's mental.
Yeah, crazy. Absolutely considering mental. The atmosphere around and the environment of the squad and the atmosphere around where we're going and the club at the moment. It is really toxic. It's dangerous. It doesn't do us any good because the thing is with Brennan Johnson is he's had such a good run of games. Same with Kulusevski with that interview he's come out. Just shows so much about his character, his personal life. But yeah, going back to Brennan Johnson, he had one bad game in 5? Has he had 5 good games where he's been people have been getting behind him, being like, yeah, he's actually, I can see him working in this system. One bad game, people jumping on him again, and it's like you're almost waiting for him to have a bad game, and then you can prove your agenda's correct. It's very toxic, and when you're living like that as a fan, when are you going to be happy? Because you're almost just waiting on a bad performance so you can put your opinions across, and it just doesn't do any good. And the thing about how I'm seeing this game and this season as a whole, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, right, it's a blip. We've had a few blips this season, but if you look at the grand scheme of things, how much improvement we've made under a season of pressure where Postecoglou's coming in. Everyone wrote him off. Kane's left. Everyone's saying we're going to finish in the bottom half of the table, mid-table, and then you look at where we are now. I see this season almost as a write-off, and it's ironic saying that because we are in such a strong place to get Champions League with that 5th place spot, but also 4th place. Obviously, Villa didn't even win over the weekend. We're only 3 points behind Villa with a game in hand. So we're still in a solid position. Obviously, we've been thumped by Fulham, so everyone has a right to be annoyed. It's just when you look at the grand scheme of things, just behave, just calm down, because we've got 2 weeks now to regroup, go again. And will be thinking how he can improve the team. And another thing is, you mentioned it with Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola in his first couple of seasons was struggling with counterattacks and struggling with transitions. And he's made City one of the best teams in the world if not the best team in the world at stopping counter-attacks. They become an ugly team, but they do it so effectively. And we're at the start of a process. These things are going to occur, and we're going to have to fix them. That happens with every process. That happens with every single process. We're lucky we're not. I mean, at the beginning of the season. Sorry, I'm ranting a bit. At the beginning of the season, we all expected maybe 6th, but as long as we played better football, we'd be happy. Yeah. Where are we now? Our opinions have changed and our expectations have changed because we've been so good. Yeah. I just think we need to just look at the grand scheme of things, reassess and think, you know what? There's things to be excited about for Spurs. We're going somewhere. These results will happen in the first season. Just let it be.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I completely agree. Like, it just almost feels like you said earlier, that these people have almost got the tweets in the drafts, like ready to go, like ready to try. Like they're ecstatic that we've lost because it's right. There are so many people in football who would rather be right than happy, and I think what we saw on Saturday from certain people is a pure example of that. And there was one tweet in particular that called people out for being media puppets and it kind of labeling them as perpetuating this toxic positivity. I'd rather be toxic. Toxic positivity is not a thing. Like, you can't be. Well, it is a thing. You can be like positive to a toxic level where you're completely ignoring all of the stuff around you and completely ignoring any potential weakness in the team or any potential weakness in terms of what Postecoglou has done, or in terms of what Daniel Levy has done, or in terms of what a certain player has done. But the people that you're labeling that tag out of being toxic or having that toxic positivity, if you listen to what they actually say, there is always criticism there. There is always always a recognition of the factors around them and say, but we are going in the right direction. You can be critical. There's nothing wrong with being critical. These players and managers get paid a hell of a lot of money. They're there to be not shot at, but they're there to be criticised. That's your kind of your role as a fan. But as long as you don't, as long as you don't lose sight of, like, I don't know, like you said, I think there are just so many people that would rather push their own agenda and try and be right about it than be happy and kind of enjoy the ride that we're on. It's a miserable existence to be in, and like, I've never been that as a fan. I don't think you've ever been that as a fan. I don't think most fans are actually like that, and that's the sad thing about it. It's a very small representation of our fan base, but it's always that minority that shout the loudest because they feel that they've got a point to prove. Like I said, you go to games sometimes and there's an ENIC out, Levy out protest. There are about 10, 15 people there. So if you're really that passionate about it, go and try and make change. Go and do something about it. Instead of moaning about what's going on at the club, instead of moaning about the supporters trust not doing anything to stick up for us, instead of doing all these things, try and do something about it rather than sitting there moaning all the time at other people for not doing something when we're clearly going in the right direction as a club. There's going to be bumps in the road. It's a young squad, a new manager to the Premier League who has got a lot of experience, but this is a whole different kettle of fish. And the way he has navigated this season through choppy waters has been fantastic. And that's why it's disappointing in the first loss that we've had, really, where we haven't played in that way and we haven't lost on our terms, all those kind of things. Maybe we didn't against Wolves. But yeah, it's just, I find it bizarre. And I think it's very frustrating because it's like, you want to just log off as a fan sometimes and be like, right, I'm ignoring that. I'm trying to box it aside. But sometimes people like that make it so hard. And football Twitter has changed to the point where you can't create this echo chamber anymore of like people that you actually respect and value their opinion, because you're getting push tweets of like fans from other clubs and weighing in on your discussion. And the kind of For You page on Twitter now, you can't create this little bubble of fans that you actually want to hear their voice. And again, it's different. It's good to have, it's healthy to have a little difference of opinion. But I just think that these people would just rather be miserable and try and be right and not see Tottenham winning anything because it proves their point. And I just think it's exhausting. It's an exhausting place to be as a football fan, but you just got to fucking just try and block it out as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen people for accusing other Spurs fans of spreading false positivity. Again, a divided fan base when we don't need to be. But also, it's not false positivity because you're doing the right thing in just backing young players that are going through a tough time in a team that's going somewhere. Because as soon as they start firing, like Johnson was for the last 5 games, how good that positivity that surrounds them can do for their confidence and their self-confidence and their belief. And as soon as people start writing them off after one bad game after a run of good form, what does that do to someone's confidence who's in their early 20s? Do you know what I mean? Like they definitely do see tweets and they're definitely active on social media. I mean, I know if I was a footballer, I'd look up my name after every single game, no matter if I play well or bad or shit. So I mean, we're just trying to back players going through a tough time, and at the end of this process, you see a player that started rough, but got his head down and kept on going, and then become the player that we signed the player to be. Because all these players have such high potentials. The worst thing we can do is try and, it's almost like you want them to fail because it suits your opinion, like you say. We need to get behind them. And at the moment, Spurs are an unfinished puzzle. And then you think of a puzzle, every single piece counts. Every single piece. And when you look at it right now, we're an unfinished puzzle. You're going to think, it looks a bit but like these. Do you know what I mean? You're going to look at it and criticize it because it's not finished. Yeah, that's fine.
I've got the beautiful hills over here, like completed. I've got the house, but it's like
what, Brian Hill.
Yeah, well, maybe he's the answer. But it's like you've got parts of it that all look, beautiful and nice, but there's one bit that's missing, or there's a couple of bits, or you can't find the piece. Like you got to allow someone like Postecoglou to figure it out. Like the way the way he's navigated Spurs through this season, the way that he's brought a fan base together is, I don't think any of us really expected this. From the, I guess, I think that, like you said though, expectations do change throughout the season, and of course, then you start to expect more because we've seen what we can be, and that's why it makes results like this frustrating, is because we know we can play so much better. And that's why it makes it harder to stomach. But you've got to bring that back into focus. You've got to bring back those performances against Newcastle, those performances against City away, Arsenal away, Liverpool at home, Aston Villa away recently, where you've shown, this team has shown this courage, shown, the quality as well. You've got to bring that back into focus because it's not like we haven't seen that at all. It's just, you kind of think it's one of those things where, like, we've spent about 20 minutes talking about it, and it's like you probably think afterwards it's not worth giving them the time of day, but it's important to talk about. It's important to talk about because we just shouldn't be having to have these conversations. It's just absolutely mental, and hopefully the people that are listening to this kind of get that through us getting it off their chest. They feel better about it, and they feel like, they're not the only ones that are trying to be like that. You know what? Here's an idea. Why don't we get behind the team? Has there anyone ever thought that as a fan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just mental. And there was another thing on Saturday as well we've talked about the season ticket prices. Whoever thought that was a good idea to rip up the Save Our Seniors banner as well? Did you see about that?
No, I didn't.
That was another mental thing. Obviously, Sky didn't show it, but Spurs fans held up a Save Our Seniors banner in the away end. Obviously in response to the raise in ticket prices. And one fan at the game decided it'd be a good idea to rip it up. So it just shows you what some of our fan base is like at times. And, we thought maybe we were all together, but I think, and from going to the games as well, like, there's just not, like, this is a bit of another mini rant in itself, but, like, Ange touched on something that Ange said about tourist fans as well. Like, I thought was beautiful and very kind of, very honest on Friday in the press conference. There was obviously a question that very much rubbed him up the wrong way, and the way he dealt with it, I think, was very, he dealt with it very well and batted those claims away of the fact that some of these fans that have travelled and spent all this money don't have the same entitlement to be there as someone else. And what always frustrates me around that debate of fans that are saying that they can't get tickets because, or not saying fans that can't get tickets, because I feel for fans that can't get tickets. It's very, very hard. But fans that are in the ground that would rather moan about a Korean fan or another fan or a tourist fan being in a certain seat don't get behind the team themselves anyway. So you have to practice what you preach. You can't moan at people for taking up seats that loyal fans would take when you're sitting there just slagging off players, digging players out, slagging other fans off, not getting behind the team. So I think there's a lot of that. There's been this toxic undercurrent to a season that has just been very encouraging, and that's what's really sad. There's this bitter taste in the mouth, and I don't like it. And I think that we shouldn't be having to have this conversation. It's just bizarre. Yeah, we've lost 3-0 to Fulham. We got our asses handed to us. In the old days, you just get up and move on. You just have to do that now. Like, it's just,
exactly.
It happens. They're a good team. We got beat. So what? Move on.
I think negativity after a result like that, it's easy to spread, and it rubs off on people because you want to release, you want that emotion, you're emotionally charged and you want that release. But yeah, like I said about the puzzle, like as soon as you put that puzzle together and complete it, like we will in the transfer windows, the upcoming transfer windows, then you'll realise that every single piece of that puzzle is a valuable asset to that picture. So the Brennan Johnsons, etc., the Kulusevskis, they will be influential once we get that perfect balance, maybe on the other side of the other wing, where you have that tricky winger that's drawing players towards them, and then they cross it to the back post, and there they are to attack it. Do you know what I mean? Like the puzzle isn't completed yet. This Spurs process isn't completed yet, so you're going to get frustrated at it whilst it's not complete. But that doesn't mean you start removing and chucking the pieces out, because they're still valuable assets to the team. Yeah. And we are on this upwards trajectory. We just need to get behind them, I think. And hopefully we start clocking on to that as a fan base, which I think we do. I think it's just a few bad eggs that just spoil it, really, and just spread that toxicity and that negativity. I'm really intrigued to hear your thoughts on Radu Dragusin's full debut, because I thought he was up and down. He was at fault for the first goal. He was unlucky with the third goal. And yeah, he was mixed, because his aerial duels were fantastic, and you're seeing that's his main strength. There's a few assets to his game, elements of his game that could be improved on, but that's expected. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think from what we've seen from Dragusin so far in patches, there's definitely a lot to be encouraged about for the future, but I thought he really struggled on Saturday. And like you say, his aerial duels are always fantastic. I think he had the most in Serie A by quite some distance in the half season before we signed him. But I do think that his sensing of danger and his ability on the ball, playing on the deck, is something that needs work. And I thought that actually the third goal, I think he could do so much better. I think it's unlucky the way it kind of Vicario saves it onto the post and then it just spins back perfectly for Muniz. But Muniz has that striker's instinct to get in there and prod it home. I just don't think Dragusin senses the danger, and I don't think he does it for the first goal either. For me, like there was again, coming back to this agenda thing, like there were a lot of people who were trying to push this notion that Romero was at fault for the first goal because he didn't play offside. I think you're really nitpicking there. Like, to maintain a perfectly straight, level line when you're trying to play a high line all the time is not going to happen. It's a great ball across from Anthony Robertson. It's a great touch and finish from Muniz. But Dragusin is nowhere near him enough for me. Like, and I think for the third goal, I just think he's ball watching. I think he's too slow to react to deal with that ball that then comes back into the box off the post, in my opinion. That might be being harsh. But again, like me being harsh on him and being critical doesn't mean that I think we should replace him in the summer or that he's not good enough. Although I do think we need to sign another centre-back. And I think Andrew's made that clear as well. He said himself on Friday. And I think as well, you've got to remember that he's playing on the wrong side. I think we look so much more balanced when Van der Ven is in the team. Obviously, Van der Ven's qualities are there. We've seen that throughout the course of the season. We are a much better team with him in it. But that's not to say that Dragusin, with a year of European football under his belt next season and more regular Premier League minutes, it appears that Van der Ven will be back fit for the Luton game, which is a massive boost because it's a huge game. And that's, again, not disrespect to Dragusin, because if Van der Ven doesn't quite make it, I'll happily see him in the team again. But I was nervous for when he came on against Villa because he's not had a lot of game time, but he dealt with that well, a few hairy moments. But for the most part, in our toughest game of the season, under really tough circumstances, he was very good. But he was poor on Saturday. But like you said, he wasn't the only one. And I think that we said it before the game, he was going to have the perfect partner to come in alongside. And I think Romero did everything that he could to sort of help him. And I actually think Dragusin was exposed a lot by the fullbacks not having a good performance and not being helped by the midfield tracking back, all those things as well. But not overly convinced, but I'm sure that we'll see an improvement from him.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head by saying he was on the wrong side of the back four. Like you can tell he cannot play left centre back. He cannot, like he's strong with his right foot. When he's shifting onto his left, it just doesn't work. You're saying when he'd pass the ball with his right, when normally Van der Ven would be there with his left, and it'll be crisp. It'll be straight into the path of a doggy, etc. Whereas his would be a bit sloppy. It'll be a bit behind the player. But I mean, that might be due to him not playing too much since he signed. He might be a little bit. He might be lacking a bit of match sharpness. But you sort of think you just got to be really patient with him because he's 21 years old. He's coming into a new league. He's got that natural ability. He's a genetic freak. He's not as quick as Van de Ven. One thing I would say is that I think we're all going to compare him to Van de Ven, because Dragusin Van de Ven, last season, I don't think the majority of us would have known about. And Van de Ven come in and he's hit the ground running. He's been insane. But I think Van de Ven was always going to adapt to the Premier League and adapt to the way Ange Postecoglou plays. He was always going to adapt to that quite fast because of the way the Bundesliga is. The Bundesliga is very transitional. It is a bit like a basketball game when you're watching Bundesliga matches. It is end to end, and you're always defending in attacking in defending defensive transitions. And Serie A is the opposite of that. When you're a Serie A defender, and especially the way Genoa play, he played in the middle of back three. So he wasn't on the left; he was in the middle. They played very deep within their. Like when they defended, they would defend deep. There wouldn't be opportunities for the opposition team. The opportunity that, say, Fulham had for the first goal, where there's players running in behind, blindsiding Dragusin. So again, he needs to just get used to the way Ange plays. Where there's going to be a lot of space in behind him, and he's going to have to anticipate those runs in behind him, because he switched off. He was ball watching. There's so much space for Muniz, and we were penalised. So I don't know. I think he's going to have a pre-season under Ange. We're going to get a centre back in that's left-footed. So whenever he does play, hopefully he's on that right-hand side. But yeah, Genoa, total antithesis of Ange ball, because they defended deep, they played a back three. Whenever they would play out from the back, it would be direct, long balls, and he's going to have to get used to this system, and it's going to take him a while to adapt. But there is a defender there, and he is someone you can get excited about. I really do think so. He's a defensively, in his duels, aerial ability, he is a freak, and. You can. He looks like he's got a lot of potential. Obviously, 21. You can refine his game, and I feel like he is a smart sign. And it's just right now, whilst he's playing on the left, he may be a vulnerability. He may be a trigger press for the opposition press. We'll have to see, but we'll have to be patient. We can't then give him stick.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. So the Premier League is a cruel beast sometimes. It takes a learning curve for a lot of players, and Dragusin will fall victim to that throughout his time at Spurs. Van de Ven will have games where he doesn't look quite on it, but we've just been so lucky that we haven't really seen that yet from Van de Ven. And the way that Romero has adapted to the Premier League as well, I think these defenders are a cut above, and I don't think Dragusin will ever be on that level of Romero and Van de Ven. But I think then you create a problem for yourself. It's like coming back to like a debate that I had a few months ago, and I remember going on. It was actually on James Alcott's YouTube channel, talking about the fact that it was after the Wolves away game that we lost, actually, months ago, and it was sort of talking about, I was on there with I was on there with a few Spurs fans, and they were doing it with Liverpool fans and Arsenal fans as the three closest competitors at the time for City for the title, because Spurs were still top at that point, and we were talking about centre-backs and sort of how we'd improve the team and all this sort of stuff. And this was prior to January. And I said that we needed to sign another centre-back, we still had Dye, etc. But there was so much clamour, and I talked about this in the video, there was so much clamour from Spurs fans to sign Van de Ven and Tapsoba, because it shows that ambition. We're signing two big players. But I really think that creates a real disconnect in terms of the harmony of the squad. I think you need to have... You can't go and sign 4 world-class centre-backs. It doesn't work like that. Man City haven't got that. Arsenal don't have that. Liverpool don't have that. There needs to be a dynamic of these are the 2 starters and these are the players that are going to be competing for those places. You can't go and sign 3 or 4 quality players for every single position, because then that upsets the balance of the squad. You need to take that into account. And although I think Spurs should sign another centre-back in the summer, again, it should be what we tried to do with Van de Ven, where it's like, you're going to be the first team centre-back, but... Obviously, at the time, Van de Ven was just a massive upgrade on what we had anyway. Yeah. But I don't think we should go and sign players that are of that level with Romero and Van de Ven. And people might say that it lacks ambition, but I think there needs to be that clear dynamic in the squad of these are the players. Like people talk about Mark Gay, Jared Branthwaite, and as much as I'd love to sign those players, if Spurs did go out and sign a Gay or a Branthwaite, I'd be over the moon. Of course I would.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think it's the most sensible decision. I made a video today we talked about William Pacho on the show last week in terms of centre back that we could look at, and I think that's that perfect kind of mould alongside Dragusin. And I think if they were to be able to get minutes together, playing together in Europe next season, if we were to sign him, I think that's kind of the route that Spurs want to go down. I don't think we should necessarily go and look at spending huge money on centre back to come in and compete with these two, because Romero and Van der Ven are your centre back partnership for the future. We've likened them to Toby and Jan. That's what they're going to be for us. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, that's a great point. You want Dragusin. You don't want you're going to compare him to Van der Ven, Romero. You don't want him to be that. I mean, you do want him to be that good, but yeah, you want him to be a reliable squad player that can come in and cover in the European competitions, cover in the FA Cup, and cover when they're injured, and not be worried about them, and just know they're going to do their job and not make a fuss. And what you're saying about William Pacho, maybe another centre-back who has that recovery pace from the Bundesliga is perfect, because they're going to come in and adapt to the way we play, just like Van der Ven, and there won't be that massive transition of getting adapting to the way we play. And Dragusin is a player that he's a bit similar to Romero in the fact that he likes to be aggressive, in the fact that he steps up, tries to anticipate passing, and maybe he was a bit too similar to Romero in the game against Fulham. But yeah, Dragusin definitely should be the player on the right hand side, someone with that recovery pace next to him, and Dragusin trying to get to those aerial duels, trying to be that aggressor. How Romero is, and then you have that balance with Van der Ven, and maybe bringing in someone similar to have similar attributes to Van der Ven, like Pacho, would be perfect to complement Dragusin at the back. But yeah, he definitely showed signs that there's a player there, but it wasn't the most promising debut, I don't think.
No.
Let's get straight to the Q&A then, because we've got quite a few questions. Honestly, everyone, thanks so much for getting involved. What we'd be really appreciative of is, let us know what you think of the podcast, because we've had a few comments, but we'd like to know how you're feeling about it, anything you'd like us to add. We just want your feedback, really. It'd be really appreciated. But it's been amazing. The support so far has been incredible. So thank you so much. And then the comments and the questions have been superb as well. EDBFC on TikTok, and this is similar to someone. So they didn't have a name. It was a disc emoji on TikTok, but it's similar to. Actually, no, it's not. Sorry, my bad. EDBFC on TikTok says, should Bissouma be benched or moved on in the summer, or stay as a starter? We've sort of already addressed that, but the starter thing, would you have him as a starter? Would you have him as a squad player or a rotation option?
I think as a rotation option. I wouldn't sell him. I think he's a very valuable member to have around the squad in terms of what he can bring, but I think it's about creating that healthy competition.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. We've spoken about Bissouma so much. I don't know if we need to go into it in any more detail. But it's a good question. And then so someone with a disc emoji on TikTok says, how many signings and of what quality do we need for a decent title challenge next season?
How many? I mean, how long's a piece of string? You could say. I don't think we need too many. I think the problem is sometimes with Spurs is that we always feel like we're 2 or 3 players away. Like, it's always been that way. If we sign 1 or 2 more with real quality, then we can challenge. And I think that's probably where we are again.
Yeah.
We've spoken a lot about that winger type, whether it's Eze or whether it's Neto, or obviously Neto's injury record has again kind of been exposed, with him basically going to miss the rest of the season for Wolves. So do you have to move on from him? Do you look at a Nico Williams, for example? Or is it more of an Eze who can cover more bases? I think a centre-back is key. I think backup fullbacks are key. And I think another midfielder. So I'd say probably 4 or 5.
Yeah, literally, because they don't have to be. They can be smart signings. I mean, you see now, like Liverpool did their business.
4 or 5 world beaters. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, the way we went about our business last summer without Champions League, without any Europe. I mean, it's a superb window, and we got all the right players for that first transfer window under Ange Postecoglou, and now we're in a position where that squad is so close to being, that first 11 is so close to being complete. You just need that winger that can draw more defenders towards them, that can beat that 1v1 specialist that I know Nathan A. Clark goes on about for at the extra inch.
Dribbly boy.
Yeah. and then that destroyer 6, I do think the way Bissouma's gone about this season, bar the beginning of the season, is evidence that we do need that sort of destroyer number 6. I think they're the two positions, really. Possibly striker, but I'm happy with Son and I'm happy with Richarlison. It depends whether we sell Richarlison, but the rest is just a squad rotation type signings. We spoke about Cole Peters last week. Those types of signings, I think they're just the smart decisions. Versatile players as well. You don't have to go out and spend buy a volume of players. Maybe just players that can cover a couple of jobs at a time. You see how valuable players are. I know it's annoying saying this, but like someone like Tomiyasu, or just players that don't kick up a fuss but come in, do the job, and they can play in multiple positions. James Milner at Liverpool when they won the league, just coming in, doing a job at fullback, doing a job in centre mid. Players like that would be perfect, and they don't cost a lot of money. You can be smart with that. But yeah, squad rotation players, and then just a couple of those big money signings that would elevate us to the next level, I think.
I agree.
And that comment coincided with Sampa on TikTok, who said, what do you think our main lineup will be next season? Go on. Who do you think, if you have to estimate who Spurs are going to sign in the summer, what would you say the lineup is starting from the goalie?
I would say, I don't think the back five changes at all. Like Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, and Doggy, obviously. I think that, midfield's a really tricky one, because I think that I do still envisage our midfield starting next season as probably maybe Bentancur, Sarr, and Maddison once Bentancur gets back up to full fitness. Like, I could see that being the first game starting next season. I do think we probably will sign a midfielder, but I think that having Sarr and Bentancur there, I think it's key. I think the only change we'll see in terms of the proper starting 11 for next season will probably be a forward, will probably be a wide player. And if it was my team and I was Daniel Levy or I was Ange Postecoglou, I would go for a Barry Eze on that left hand side, Sonny through the middle, and probably Kulusevski on the right, or maybe Brennan Johnson on the right. That's what I would go with. Do
you think he'd work as that winger, that out and out winger?
I have doubts about it, but the vibes are kind of carrying me through at the moment.
Literally.
I just think in terms of the way I could see like him, Maddison, and the Doggy forging a really nice connection like down that side, Eze drifting into that 10 pocket. We've seen Maddison plays wide for England often. I just think you can create a really fluid system. I think there's maybe players that you could sign out there that make more sense. Like maybe like a Nico Williams would probably make more sense, but I would just love a Barry Eze.
Both.
Yeah, fuck it, why not? Fuck it.
Exactly.
Williams on the right, Eze on the left. We're going to win the fucking league.
Yeah, you got Johnson coming on from the bench, that pace. You got Kulusevski coming on to control games. That title's
so you've got to remember that Johnson and Kulusevski will be gone because they were wasting money and they shouldn't play.
They're fucking shit.
They'll be gone in the
We need to show ambition. Get rid of them. Yeah.
Actually, Brian Hill on the right could work really well.
Yeah, Brian Hill hit the gym, comes back.
Yeah,
unreal player. I agree. I think it will be that left wing signing. I'm curious to see who we go for, because Paul O'Keefe's talked about how we've got players like Rafinha on the list. I mean, that's a right winger. I have no idea why we're going for right wingers when we've got Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson. Maybe Ange sees Brennan Johnson maybe as a left winger. Maybe Werner's signed permanently. But if we're going for a right winger, there are players. There's more players that are 1v1 specialists on the right that would fit better than players on the left. There's more signings we could make on that right hand side, but we got players on the right hand side. I'm thinking of Matthias Sule. I'm thinking of Rooney Bardaji, Johan Bakayoko. Those types of players that would make an impact from the right. But I don't know, on the left hand side, you literally your list is quite short. It's the Nico Williams. Eze would be able to cover multiple positions, and then I don't know,
Kvaratskhelia, maybe. That would be an incredibly ambitious signing. Yeah, exactly. But I think all of these players are going to be incredibly expensive.
Exactly. That's true.
You're going to get Eze out of Palace, you're looking at least 60 million. At least, I think.
Last question then. How many minutes should Bergvall get next season? Because I've decided, going off what we've talked about with that number 6, fuck off Gallagher. We don't need Gallagher. We've got... Did you see the Bergvall goal over the weekend as well? The header coming into the box. Yeah. Dele Alli.
Did you see the piece of skill as well? There was one video.
In the corner flag. Yeah. And so I've decided that we don't need that another 8 when Bergvall's there, Bentancur's there, Sarr's there. We need more cover in the number 6 position. I've got a feeling Spurs are going to just get Gallagher anyways, or try and do that anyways. But
I think they'll try and do it.
Yeah, how many minutes then for Bergvall next year?
I think it's an interesting one with that, because I think that whatever happens, Andrew will have a proper good look at him in pre-season, and if he thinks he's ready, I think he'll be on the bench like most weeks. A bit like what we saw with Sarr when Sarr was brought in and obviously got in the team and then was sort of fucked off by Conte. But I think it'll be something like that. Like, also, you've got to remember, you've got a big bench in the Premier League now. If we're in the Europa League next season, I think that'll be a really good kind of competition for him to sort of bed in the cups as well. I could see it be one of those ones where he is around for the first 6 months and then potentially goes on loan in January, maybe.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
I could see it being one of them. But who knows? He could come and set the world alight. And then we'd like, fucking hell, like, this guy's solved all our problems.
Yeah, literally. He looks like he has that ability. He looks like he has the mentality. He's been a leader from the youth age. Like, if you've seen that speech he did against the PSG under 12. Yeah. So like, he definitely looks like a player that his mindset, his mentality, he's ready to come in next year. And we've obviously promised him minutes as well, because we got him off Barcelona, because Barcelona just wanted them to put him straight into the youth team. So I don't know. I think the expectation is that he definitely will have a big part in next season. It's just whether he is ready. We'll only see. Time will tell. We'll see in pre-season how he's embedded in the squad, and hopefully he keep the ground running. But if not, he's 18 years old. Like, alone will do him good. So I don't
100%.
think there's too much time pressure on Bergvall.
No, not at all.
It's just great that we have him, because he's fucking unreal. Yeah, that was quite a long pod.
Yeah, that's like therapy. That
I know. Yeah, literally cathartic. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone. 2 weeks now to sort of dwell on that, which is shit. But just know we're going somewhere with this young team. You're gonna have blips in this first season. It is what it is. We move. But yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. And what's your socials?
Of course, mate. Yeah, mate. We are going in the right direction. We are going somewhere. Just don't let the idiots get you down. We're going in the right direction. Ben Talks Football on TikTok. Ben Bowman pretty much on everything else. You'll be able to find me. You'll find me.
If you're watching this, you already know.
Yeah, I've got actually. If you could go, there's a YouTube video coming out tomorrow. If you like Championship, there's a YouTube video coming out on Jacob Horsfall's channel tomorrow featuring myself, where we predicted the playoff races. So go and have a watch of that. And yeah, big things coming. So keep an eye on everything that we're doing, and up the fucking Spurs.
Up the Spurs, legends. Catch you all later. Have a good week.
Coys.